The year was 1999. The world was on the brink of a new millennium. Anticipation mingled with uncertainty. Then, on December 24th, Christmas Eve, terror struck. Indian Airlines Flight IC 814, en route from Kathmandu to Delhi, became a pawn in a deadly game. 5 heavily armed terrorists hijacked the plane, turning a routine flight into a terrifying ordeal. This was not just a hijacking, it was an act of war. The world watched, holding its breath, as the drama unfolded. This hijacking would expose the vulnerabilities of a nation grappling with terrorism. It would test the resolve of the Indian government, and it would leave an indelible mark on India's security protocols. The hijacking of IC-814 was a wake-up call, a stark reminder of the threat India faced. It was a tragedy that forced a nation to confront its vulnerabilities and reshape its security apparatus. The 1990s saw a surge in terrorism. India, already battling internal conflicts, became a prime target. Cross-border terrorism, fueled by animosity and religious extremism, cast a long shadow over the nation. Militant groups, operating from safe havens, carried out audacious attacks. These groups sought to destabilize India, to spread fear and chaos. The Indian government faced mounting pressure to act decisively. The security apparatus was found wanting. Intelligence failures, porous borders, and a lack of coordination plagued the system. The hijacking of IC-814 exposed these flaws for the world to see. It underscored the need for a comprehensive overhaul of India's security infrastructure. It was a turning point, a moment of reckoning for a nation grappling with the specter of terrorism. Flight IC-814 took off from Kathmandu, soaring into the clear December sky. On board, 176 passengers, a mix of nationalities, settled in for the short flight to Delhi. Little did they know, their journey was about to take a sinister turn. 5 terrorists, armed with pistols, grenades, and explosives, hijacked the aircraft. The hijackers' demands were clear: the release of several jailed militants. Their brutality was evident. They moved through the aircraft with an air of menace, terrorizing passengers and crew. One passenger, Rupin Katyal, was brutally murdered. His body was dumped on the tarmac in Dubai, a grim warning to the Indian government. The world watched in horror as the hijackers steered the aircraft from one location to another: Amritsar, Lahore, Dubai, and finally Kandahar, Afghanistan. The hijacking of IC-814 was no longer just about the hostages. It had become a high-stakes international crisis. News of the hijacking sent shockwaves through India. Families of those on board were plunged into a nightmare. The government faced immense pressure to act swiftly and decisively. A crisis management group comprising top officials was formed. The CMG faced an unenviable task. The hijackers were ruthless, their demands non-negotiable. The safety of the hostages was paramount. But the government also had to consider the implications of giving in to terrorist demands. The world was watching. India's response would have far-reaching consequences. The hijacking of IC-814 was a defining moment for the Indian government. It was a test of their resolve, their ability to protect their citizens, and their commitment to fighting terrorism. Section 5. Days of Negotiations. The Taliban's role. The hijacked plane landed in Kandahar, Afghanistan, then under Taliban control. The Taliban, known for their extremist ideology, became key players in the crisis. India, with no diplomatic ties to the Taliban, faced a diplomatic quagmire. Days turned into a nerve-wracking wait. Negotiations were tense and protracted. The hijackers, growing increasingly agitated, issued threats. The hostages, trapped in a confined space, faced unimaginable conditions. The world held its breath, hoping for a peaceful resolution. The Indian government, walking a tightrope, had to balance the safety of its citizens with the principles of national security. Section 6. Freedom at a Price, the Hostage Release. After 8 grueling days, a deal was struck. The Indian government agreed to release 3 dreaded terrorists in exchange for the hostages. It was a bitter pill to swallow, a decision that sparked controversy and debate. But with the lives of 176 passengers at stake, the government felt it had no choice. On December 31st, 1999, the hostages were finally released. They returned home, forever marked by the trauma of their ordeal. The nation breathed a collective sigh of relief. But the hijacking of IC-814 had left an indelible mark. It had exposed vulnerabilities, highlighted the complexities of dealing with terrorism, and raised uncomfortable questions about the price of freedom. Section 7. The Aftermath, Scrutiny and Debate. The release of the hostages was met with relief, but also with scrutiny. The government faced criticism for its handling of the crisis. Some argued that the decision to release terrorists set a dangerous precedent. Others questioned the efficacy of the intelligence and security apparatus. The hijacking of IC-814 sparked a national debate on terrorism, security, and the government's response. It led to a thorough review of security protocols, particularly in aviation. The incident highlighted the need for better intelligence gathering, stronger border control, and more robust crisis management systems. The hijacking was a wake-up call, forcing India to confront uncomfortable truths about its security apparatus. Section 8. Aviation Security Overhaul, Lessons Learned. The hijacking of IC-814 exposed glaring gaps in India's aviation security. The government, determined to prevent such incidents in the future, implemented sweeping reforms. Security at airports was significantly enhanced. New screening procedures, including passenger profiling and baggage checks, were introduced. The Central Industrial Security Force, or CISF, took over the responsibility of airport security. The hijacking of IC-814 had been a harsh lesson, but it had forced India to revamp its aviation security protocols, making air travel safer for millions. It was a turning point, a catalyst for change in India's approach to counter-terrorism. Section 9. Timeline of Terror, 8 days in December. Here's a timeline of the hijacking, capturing the key events of those 8 harrowing days. December 24th. Indian Airlines Flight IC-8114, en route from Kathmandu to Delhi, is hijacked. December 25th. The hijacked plane makes stops in Amritsar, Lahore, and Dubai. December 26th. The plane lands in Kandahar, Afghanistan, then under Taliban control. December 27th to 30th. Tense negotiations take place between the hijackers, the Indian government, and Taliban intermediaries. December 31st. After 8 long days, the hostages are released in exchange for 3 jailed terrorists. These 8 days in December 1999 remain etched in India's memory, a stark reminder of the human cost of terrorism and the challenges of combating it. Section 10. The Kandahar Hijacking, a defining moment. The Kandahar hijacking was a watershed moment in India's fight against terrorism. It exposed vulnerabilities, tested the nation's resolve, and led to significant changes in India's security architecture. The incident underscored the global nature of terrorism and the need for international cooperation. The hijacking of IC-814 was a tragedy, a stark reminder of the human cost of hatred and extremism. But it was also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the courage of the hostages, and the determination of a nation to combat terrorism. The lessons learned from this harrowing incident continue to shape India's security policies today, a somber reminder of the constant vigilance required in an increasingly uncertain world.